This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. Winnipeg police arrested a man this morning in connection with a mass shooting on Langside Street last weekend. As CBC's Cameron McLean reports, the suspect is a well-known advocate for young men with a troubled past.
32-year-old Jamie Randy Felix faces 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 charge of attempted murder. He's accused of killing 4 people and seriously wounding another man at this house on Langside Street on Sunday. Police officers arrested him at a Fernwood Avenue apartment building early this morning.
I think we've all felt not at ease, including the police service, right? So our message to them is that we do have a suspect in custody for that homicide and for that shooting. So I feel like that in itself should provide the community some sort of relief.
Felix worked as a model, actor, and member of the armed forces.
I talked to him a few times.
In 2020, he spoke to CBC Radio's Now or Never about his struggles with addiction after his twin brother was killed in 2012.
It's really shocking.
Melvin Swan was a mentor to Felix and helped him get into the military.
He was respectful. He was a good guy. I mean, last time I seen him, he was, I thought he was going down the right path.
Police have identified the 4 people killed, sisters Crystal and Stephanie Beardy, as well as Dylan Lavalley and Melalek Lesikel. Police have not said whether Felix knew any of the victims or why he was at the house. Swan says the incident leaves him with many questions.
I really don't know what to make of it. So I feel my heart goes out to the families.
Court documents show Felix had no criminal record until recently. Earlier this year, he was given a 2-year suspended sentence and supervised probation after he pleaded guilty to assault causing bodily harm. That stemmed from a fight at a party in August 2021. At his sentencing, the judge noted that Felix had faced significant challenges but had worked to overcome them. As for what led to the shooting on Langside this past Sunday, those details remain a mystery. The investigation is ongoing. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Today marks a somber anniversary for the families of First Nations women who police allege were murdered by the same man. 1 year ago, police announced Jeremy Skibicki had been charged in the deaths of Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and an unknown victim given the name Buffalo Woman. He was already charged in the death of Rebecca Contois. 2 of the families have been fighting to have a landfill searched for their loved ones. Tonight, one of those families and their supporters is gathering at the home where the accused once lived. CBC's Josh Crabb is there. Josh, what's happening tonight?
Well, family members of Morgan Harris are gathering here on McKay Street in her honor. Family of Mercedes Myron are also planning to attend. They say it's important to gather and remember the women's lives. There are photos and red dresses behind me hung in their honor as they work to try and bring their loved ones home. A red dress blows in the wind at Camp Morgan, named for homicide victim Morgan Harris. This is where her family and their supporters have been gathering for the past year.
A year ago today, I had already gotten the call that, the homicide detectives wanted to sit down with us.
Harris's cousin, Melissa Robinson, says her family was given advance notice about this Winnipeg Police Media Conference on December 1st, 2022. Officers announced Jeremy Skibicki was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Harris, Mercedes Myron, and a 3rd victim known as Buffalo Woman. He was already charged in Rebecca Contois' death. Contois' remains were found, but the bodies of the other 3 women haven't been recovered.
I remember Cambria asking, well, where is she?
Police later said they believe Harris and Myron are in Prairie Green Landfill north of Winnipeg. Harris's daughter, Cambria, along with Robinson, other family, and Myron's family have been pushing for a search ever since. Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Harris's family and their supporters plan to maintain a presence here at Brady Road Landfill until both Prairie Green and this landfill are searched. They even have this new wood shelter to help keep people warm over the winter. A feasibility study determined a search could cost up to $184 million and take up to 3 years. There have been no firm funding commitments. In October, Long Plain First Nation, Harris and Myron's home community got $740,000 from the federal government to do a more detailed review and report back in January.
It's just a very clearly outlined plan of who would be involved and what does a landfill search require.
A spokesperson for Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Gary Anand-Asangari says the Government of Canada and Government of Manitoba are currently in discussions about the next steps. We're working with partners on the path forward.
It's my commitment that we will follow up with these families and conduct this search in a compassionate way.
Robinson says the family has renewed optimism a search will be done, but she says the past year has been difficult.
We're still pretty much at step one, right? Like, we still don't have Morgan.
The gathering here tonight is just getting underway. Now, Robinson says the path forward for victims' families won't get much easier as they're now preparing for Skibicki's trial. It's scheduled to start at the end of April. Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Josh. That is CBC's Josh Crabb reporting live tonight. This is a special day here at CBC Manitoba as we present Make the Season Kind on radio, TV, and YouTube. It is a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba. We will have some special musical guests later on in the newscast, but first, a new report by Harvest Manitoba says the need for food banks in this province is at an all-time high. That need is especially pronounced in Winnipeg's North End, where a well-visited food pantry shut down earlier this year. CBC's Emily Brass caught up with one of the organizations filling the gap.
Miranda Ross comes to the Elizabeth Fry Society every Tuesday and Friday. Its food bank on Selkirk Avenue is just one of several she'll have to visit this week. The mother of four says the high cost of living is wearing her out.
It's hard to balance risking going homeless or not being able to feed my family. So, I'm having to be short on rent because I need a little more food, or paying full amount rent and being, short on food. So it's hard.
Many of those in line are mothers and grandmothers with several mouths to feed. Harvest Manitoba's new Harvest Voices report found most Manitobans using food banks are women, and nearly 2/3 have kids.
Thank you so much.
Verla Boyd greets people coming for food who sometimes line up hours in advance.
They're always, I'm so thankful, thank you so very much. And it's really heartwarming. And it's also very saddening that the number of people that use the food bank has rose. And it's not just people that are homeless, it's people like me that are working.
The Elizabeth Fry Society is best known for helping women dealing with the justice system, but when COVID hit, it started a food bank.
People were coming to the door, asking for food, emergency food.
A few years later, the need has grown a lot. The Bear Clan pantry across the street shut down suddenly last August, and Elizabeth Fry Society is one of several groups stepping in to help, handing out twice as many hampers as it did last year.
It's a struggle in the community, and people are accessing it because of the inflation rates.
The group also helps its own clients with food, including this young couple raising 8 kids while going to school full time.
Because I came out of jail and I came here. They're really helpful. It's like they worked with you, they didn't go against you. We did that, prevention.
The pair met here as roommates, then built a life together, but housing costs are an obstacle.
All right. We have a reduced rent right now, so that's great, but we're trying to look elsewhere to try and find a bigger home for our family. And it's ridiculous how much rent's gone up.
Harvest Manitoba's survey found 84% of food bank users rent their homes, spending an average of just over $1,000 a month. That's about 40% less than the average rent for a 2-bedroom in Winnipeg, suggesting most food bank users have to settle for more marginal housing. In the meantime, the couple hopes to one day afford their dream of a bigger home by keeping up their studies with help from Elizabeth Fry. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An update to a story we brought you earlier this week. A family doctor who signed an agreement to work for a decade in a northern Manitoba community, but then left within 2 years, has agreed to repay a $100,000 loan she got as a recruitment incentive. Dr. Andrea Wilson says she has continued to provide care to patients in the PAW virtually, even after moving to Vancouver. Karen Pauls has this update.
This northern Manitoba town is where Dr. Andrea Wilson agreed to work for a decade. Court documents show she signed a $100,000 loan agreement with the PAW Community Development Corporation in exchange for at least 880 clinical hours every year between 2020 and 2030. But the lawsuit against her claims Wilson left the PAW after only 16 months and moved to Vancouver, breaching the agreement. Wilson disputes that, saying her primary residence was in the PAW until January 2022. She says the agreement doesn't restrict work outside of the PAW and doesn't specify where she must live. The Development Corporation asked her to repay the loan by last December, but Wilson says the two sides couldn't agree on how many hours of clinical service she provided through virtual care until this last week. She has now agreed to pay the balance owed, a lump sum payment of $100,000 by December 31st. Once the money is received, the lawsuit will be dropped, confirms Jonathan Patterson, the Development Corporation's lawyer. Wilson says she has been taking care of patients virtually from Vancouver, but she's not working right now because she's caring for a sick family member. No one from the Northern Regional Health Authority could be reached to confirm what kind of service she is providing to patients in the PAW. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
After the Progressive Conservatives called for it all week, the NDP government is adding marked fuel to the list of fuels eligible for the planned gas tax holiday. Marked fuel, also called purple gas, is largely used by farmers. Finance Minister Adrian Salas says the New Democrats listened to concerns from the Tories and others.
We heard from communities and we heard from folks that had some small concerns about that lack of clarity. And really this was just about cleaning up that concern, just making sure that there's no confusion, no opportunities for folks to feel concerned about whether or not they were going to be able to benefit from this measure.
The provincial gas tax on marked fuel is 3 cents a litre, lower than the 14 cents on clear gas. The gas tax holiday is expected to start in January and last at least 6 months. Legislators must still pass the bill. The PCs now say they'll support it. Today, on World AIDS Day, the Manitoba government announced new supports for HIV care. The goal is to help the most vulnerable and reverse some troubling statistics in Manitoba. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings you more.
Members of the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre performed to mark World AIDS Day, but there is an alarming trend. Manitoba has seen a 40 to 50% increase in new HIV infections each year. Michael Payne, Executive Director of Nine Circles Community, thinks those numbers will continue to rise.
We unfortunately seem on track to have up to 350 new HIV infections this year. And we have modeling that tell us that if we maintain our status quo, if we don't do something meaningful now, we'll see those rates of HIV continue to climb up to potentially 500 next year, 800 in years beyond that.
Payne mentions the high-risk groups.
In the prairies, and certainly in Manitoba, it's a different trend. We see increasingly heterosexual folks, seeing the larger representation of new HIV infections. Very often women, 50% or more of new infections lie within women in Manitoba. Indigenous folks are overrepresented in those stats.
Taking this into consideration, Health Minister Zoma Asagwara announced launch of the program to access treatment for HIV and support, or PATHS. PATHS will provide outreach services to people with HIV in faraway communities.
Through PATHS, community-based teams go into the community to provide intensive case management to ensure clients remain connected to their treatments and other critical supports.
Asagwara also announced a new mobile care service to provide Indigenous-led care to people who are homeless. This service will be run by the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre. Director Colleen Ottertail says this will benefit the community.
We will be able to go to them. We will meet them where they are at. So we'll take our services and we'll go to encampments. Some of these people haven't had a chance to be in the healthcare system, and when they are, they're not treated very well.
Also in honor of the late Dr. Dick Smith, a pioneer in HIV/AIDS treatment and education, a postdoctoral fellowship will be created. Aurora also announced funding of more than $500,000 for the Manitoba HIV program and more than $250,000 for the mobile care services. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg musician and TV host Chad Allen has died. Allen, whose birth name was Alan Cowbell, was a founding member of the Guess Who and host of the 60s TV show Let's Go. Allen eventually moved to Vancouver. He became a member of the Order of Manitoba in 2015. Chad Allen died November 21st at the age of 80. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. And Riley, okay, we're into the final month. We've started a new month, December, but you have actually some statistics about what November was like.
Some very preliminary numbers on what November was like. And, you know, no surprise, it was definitely a warm month. Not the warmest, not the hottest November we've seen in history, and really not even in the top 5, but certainly we did see some pretty warm temperatures, so we can take a look at some of those now. In terms of the warmest day in November, that was November 14th, the Forks reaching 10.0 degrees in the afternoon. Days at or above seasonal. Again, these are still preliminary. They haven't gone through any data quality checks from Environment Canada yet, but by my count, 23 days at or above seasonal in Winnipeg, give or take some of those being, you know, a tenth, 0.2 degrees or so above normal in some cases, and precipitation 26.8 millimeters. Again, a very preliminary number, but that's just a little bit over normal precipitation for November. But certainly I think we will probably remember the heat from this November. I know a lot of people probably hoping for some snow in time for Christmas, and you know, even in the 7-day forecast, really not a lot of that to be seen. Looking at satellite radar, under a very stable weather pattern, stationary trough really keeping our skies relatively clear. We did see some cloud cover this morning, and really that's what we're going to see as we get through the weekend, just some passing cloud as we start the morning tomorrow across the province. So don't be surprised if you see some cloudier skies first thing tomorrow and even into the afternoon. But cloud with sun through the day tomorrow, and really that's the case for Sunday as well. Bit more cloud, maybe some flurries into northern Manitoba as we get into Sunday. But like I said, I just don't have a lot to talk about. It is very stable weather pattern here in Manitoba over the next few days at least. The one thing I will mention though is the winds. So winds have been fairly calm today, which was nice, but as we get into the day on Saturday, we'll see winds picking up a little bit out of the south. Could see winds gusting to 40 by about noon tomorrow, maybe see some gusts up to 50 through the afternoon before they die off again as we head into the day on Sunday. So could be a bit breezy tomorrow. -2 at the airport under a clear sky right now. We did get to 0 this afternoon. Pressure has been rising through the afternoon as well, and we'll see temperatures dropping overnight tonight to around -10 degrees. A few clouds, winds staying fairly light through the evening tonight. Increasing clouds, -7 first thing in the morning with some sunny breaks first thing as well. Could see winds gusting out of the south up to 40 through the afternoon. And it could be a bit breezy in the afternoon. Cloud with sun, a -1 temperature by the time we get to about the middle of the afternoon. Generally, that's what most of southern Manitoba can expect as we get through the day tomorrow. And March, nothing but sun and cloud as we get through the next few days as well. Temperatures hovering around the 0, the freezing mark as well. So still a little bit above seasonal for this time of the year, but we'll see some sun, maybe some snow in the 7-day forecast. We'll talk about that a bit later in the show.
All right. Thanks a lot, Riley.
No problem.
CBC Manitoba's Make the Season Kind has been a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba. As we go to break with the music of Juno-nominated jazz duo Aaron Propp and Larry Roy, help fight hunger in our community by donating to Harvest Manitoba.
If I could only have you near to breathe a sigh or two, I would be happy just to hold the hands I love on this winter's night with you. Be happy just to hold the hands I love on this winter's night with you. Oh, and to be once again with you.
Welcome back. Well, Ottawa is now taking the first step in creating a public alert system for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Olivia Stefanovich has more on the proposed red dress alert system.
Such a long wait.
Stephanie English says she wished there would have been a public-wide alert when her 25-year-old daughter Joey went missing.
I really struggled with that. How I found out with my daughter, one of my daughters, is the knock on the door after 19 days later.
Ottawa is now trying to change the way the country responds to missing Indigenous women, launching consultations to make a new emergency notification system a reality. Just like Amber Alerts for missing children, a red dress alert would notify the public on their phones whenever an Indigenous woman, girl, or two-spirit person goes missing.
All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Carried.
A motion by New Democrat MP Leah Gazan received the support of the House of Commons for a red dress alert.
There's no more time to wait. There's no more time for excuses. We need a red dress now.
The National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls recommended a nationwide emergency number for disappearances.
The first 24 hours that a person goes missing is absolutely vital to use to try to locate the individual.
The inquiry's chief commissioner has since worked with Washington State to develop North America's first alert system for all missing Indigenous people. Something this advocate says she wants Canada to follow.
Our men and boys who are just as valued, of course, as everyone else.
English says the time to act is now.
It's been 8 years, and I still haven't heard anything about my daughter. And it's very important, very crucial that we have that support from the government.
It's a matter, she says, of saving lives. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Overseas now, the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has ended after a week, and fighting has resumed in Gaza. Israel dropped leaflets over parts of the area earlier in the day, urging residents to leave. But the territory's health ministry, which is run by Hamas, says at least 100 people have been killed today. CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest.
Death and destruction returned to Gaza, along with suffering, as 7 days of truce ended this morning. Casualties pulled from fresh rubble. We are living in terror and dying of starvation, he says, all over again. Moments after fighting resumed, Israel unleashed 200 airstrikes against what it calls terror targets, blaming Hamas for firing rockets and refusing to release the remaining Israeli women and children taken hostage. The number is relatively low, but disputed.
Having chosen to hold on to our women, Hamas will now take the mother of all thumpings.
Most casualties were in the crowded south, where Israel earlier urged Gaza residents to move for safety. 2 million people trapped here. Like this man, whose house was destroyed, insisting it was only full of civilians. Hamas blames Israel for breaking the peace, saying it wouldn't accept the list of hostages Hamas suggested for release. American, Qatari, and Egyptian negotiators are trying to broker another truce, with the U.S. urging restraint.
I made clear that after the pause, it was imperative that Israel put in place clear protections for civilians and for sustaining humanitarian assistance going forward.
But aid shipments have stalled, and a UNICEF spokesman is posting warnings from inside Gaza.
The health system here is overwhelmed. This hospital simply cannot take more children with the wounds of war.
And the fighting in and over Gaza tonight looks like it never stopped, with rockets fired by Hamas and intercepted by Israel's defense system. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
It is the first full day of events at the UN COP28 climate talks in Dubai. King Charles delivered the keynote address today. The British monarch said the dangers of climate change were no longer a distant risk and that alarming tipping points are being reached. The CBC's international climate correspondent Susan Ormiston has more from the conference.
At the junction of politics and climate, world leaders gathered to turn the spotlight on a scorching planet. Part of this summit's ambition to motivate politicians to bust through resistance and tackle their own country's polluting habits. King Charles invited as a monarch with a long pedigree in the environment.
Our choice now is a starker and darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world? In 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do.
The UAE host country added sound, color, and money to the leaders' opening ceremony.
$30 مليار.
The Emirati president announcing a $30 billion fund with money reaped on oil to finance clean energy projects, especially in less developed countries.
We cannot save a burning planet via fire holes of fossil fuels.
The UN Secretary General took direct aim at the industry which made this country and others rich.
So allow me to have a message for fossil fuel company leaders. Your old world is rapidly aging. Do not double down on an obsolete business model. Lead the transition to renewables.
Canada opened its pavilion here in Dubai, adding an early commitment to the Fund for Climate Loss and Damages.
Canada will be pledging $16 million to the Loss and Damage Fund. We think this is a significant step forward.
But the toughest battle yet will be waged on curbing those fossil fuel emissions.
That is the CBC's international climate correspondent Susan Ormiston in Dubai. The House of Representatives in the U.S. voted today to expel embattled Republican George Santos from Congress. The historic vote came on the heels of a damning report by the House Ethics Committee. It found overwhelming evidence that Santos repeatedly violated public trust and may have used campaign money for personal use. CBC's Richard Madden has this report from Washington.
Disgraced former Congressman George Santos has left the building, expelled by an extremely rare historic vote. More than 100 fellow Republicans turned on the now former lawmaker, clearing the high bar of a 2/3 majority vote required to oust him.
Nobody takes any joy in this. This is obviously a somewhat historic moment. I fundamentally believe he's unfit to serve in public office, whether it was dog catcher in his local community or here in the halls of Congress.
Mr. Santos took not only my credit card personally, he took my mother's credit card personally, and he swiped them both for an additional $5,000, marking it as an overdonation.
Santos is already facing separate indictments for wire fraud and money laundering. But the final straw appears to have been that scathing congressional ethics investigation, a bipartisan one at that. It found evidence he may have stolen from campaign donors allegedly used to pay for his Botox treatment, designer clothes, and adult website OnlyFans. But Santos argued he hasn't been convicted of any crime, at least not yet. And hours before the vote, he portrayed himself a victim of an unfair process.
All of the work I've done in this body has been above board. Nobody can actually question my ethics and my conduct in Congress, unlike some of my colleagues who are on drunken tirades going after their former staff. But I'm the one being pinned for all of this nonsense.
Santos now joins an exclusive club, becoming the 6th member of Congress to be expelled in U.S. history. 3 were booted for treason for fighting for the Confederacy during the Civil War. And Santos's final words as he left the Capitol were reportedly, "To hell with this place." A by-election will soon be held for his district in Long Island, and Democrats signaling they're going to spend big, hoping to flip that seat blue. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
Donna Merrow is a 3-time nominated Juno Award nominee and a friend of Harvest and Make the Season Kind. He is here to send us to break and you to the phones to donate.
With joy we take the time to celebrate. Live every moment, don't just wait. Merry Christmas, everyone. May your hearts be filled with love. And the excitement's everywhere. Keep the magic in the air. And take the time to love. Merry Christmas, everyone. May your hearts be filled with love. And the excitement's everywhere. Keep the magic in the air. Take the time to love. Don't let it up. Spread Christmas cheer all through the year.
It's tough to make ends meet when you're living on social assistance. It's even harder when you have health issues that require a special diet. CBC's Emily Brass has more on a Selkirk family struggling to afford the healthy foods they need.
I can only buy one box of stuffing.
Sharon McCorrister spends about $700 a month on groceries and picks up the rest from a food bank.
I got to start a week ahead of time thinking of my routes and what I'm going to get and how much I have to spend. Get you better foods.
McCorrister's retired and feeds her family of 5 on not much more than her old age pension. She's raising 2 kids and a teenager who all have special dietary needs.
One boy is allergic to chicken broth, sesame seeds, eggs, so I have to look for foods that have no eggs in them.
Meanwhile, her husband's food choices are limited because of diabetes, and his health problems keep him from working.
5 grams per serving.
McCorrister spends a lot of time shopping for deals and looking at labels.
Even if it does have sugar, he'll take a chance or he'll just take half of it or something, just to save money.
If you're on a fixed income and you want to make some spaghetti, well, you might be inclined to reach for this package of no-name spaghetti for $3.79. But when you have diabetes, you really need to be reaching for the whole grain alternative, which is $4.99 for a much smaller pack. Whole grains are rich in fiber and can help control diabetes, while the highly processed white varieties of carbs can send your blood sugar soaring. Nutritionists say the higher prices make managing health problems on a low income a struggle.
I think it would be almost impossible to meet those needs. You don't have any control when you go to a food bank, right? There's no way to plan, and so people are a victim to whatever is available to them.
Harvest Manitoba supplies food banks across the province, including the one McCorrister uses in Selkirk. It surveyed hundreds of food bank users. Nearly half say they're living with disabilities or health concerns, and almost 3/4 say they can't afford healthy food. Harvest says it occasionally offers things like whole grain pasta and bread, but only when those items are donated. When it purchases in bulk, it buys the white variety of carbs to make its dollars stretch.
Potato and cheese, the sauerkraut ones.
With Christmas on the horizon, McCorrister is also stretching her dollars by making her own holiday food, like pierogies.
If I hadn't learned how to cook from my mom, I probably wouldn't survive today on what the prices are. Gingerbread cookies.
She says they'll celebrate the season playing games and having big family potlucks. Emily Brass, CBC News, Selkirk.
Weather Update is brought to you by the Art and Beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine, January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
Well, a little bit of a light show actually in store tonight, right, Riley?
Yes, and if you live outside the city, free of charge. All you have to do is look up at the sky. Unfortunately, if you're in the city, we're expecting to see some aurora tonight. If you're in the city, it might be a little bit too bright still just because of the light pollution from the streetlights and everything. So let's take a look at the map here. And you can see that as we get into the night tonight, this is peak, I guess, if you're going to see the aurora at some point over the weekend. We're expecting some fairly strong activity tonight. Moderate, which means there's still a chance, even the further north you go, of seeing the northern lights Saturday and Sunday. But if you can get out tonight, tonight's a pretty good night to do it. Fairly clear skies across most of the province, and we are going to see temperatures really not that cold either tonight. So looking at temperatures right now, -2 at the airport, -2 at the Forks as well. A little bit cooler to the south and to the east of the city. -8 in Selkirk right now as well. And looking across the rest of southern Manitoba, temperatures -5, -6 in the Westman region, -10 in Barons River, and minus single digits even into northwestern Ontario. Northern Manitoba, we're seeing a temperatures in the minus double digits across the far north, minus 14 in Churchill. So tonight's forecast looks like this. Mainly clear skies, some cloudy periods through parts of the north. Otherwise, though, we're looking at temperatures around minus 10 for northwestern Ontario this evening. Southeastern Manitoba really looking at much the same as well, minus 7 in Steinbach and Sprague tonight. Down to minus 10 in the city tonight. I think this is an early morning temperature for us in Winnipeg at least. Minus 6 in Brandon overnight tonight, minus 11 in Swan River. We could see some flurries through Lynn Lake and Flin Flon overnight. Periods of snow, minus 18 in Churchill, even some minus, approaching and at minus 20 across parts of the north through the night tonight. Really not going anywhere temperature-wise in Churchill tomorrow. Mainly sunny, minus 17 degrees, minus 4s for the Pas and Norway House, minus 13s in northeastern Manitoba. We're looking at temperatures around the freezing mark for southern Manitoba, plus 3 in Brandon tomorrow, minus 2 in Swan River, a pair of 2s for Portage La Prairie and Morden Winkler. And into the Red River Valley, temperatures around the freezing mark as well, just below 0 in Winnipeg. Otherwise, we're looking at temperatures really right around the freezing mark. Same for northwestern Ontario as well. Bit more cloud through northwestern Ontario through the day tomorrow, minus 1 in Kenora and Dryden, and March, minus 3 in Fort Frances.
Very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Our Make the Season Kind in support of Harvest Manitoba continues with music from Meadows West School Choir. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
But I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day.
Today, CBC Manitoba is dedicating our local programming to Make the Season Kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. Harvest distributes food to more than 380 food banks and agencies across our province. As we heard in Emily's stories, Manitoba is seeing a jump in the number of people turning to food banks. Vince Barletta is the president and CEO of Harvest Manitoba. Hi, Vince. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, how much of a demand are you seeing on your resources at Harvest Manitoba these days?
Well, we're seeing record demand for food banks all across our province. A 150% increase in food bank use since the start of the COVID pandemic, a 30% increase just in this past year alone. And today, I'm sad to say that 50,000 Manitobans use a food bank somewhere in our province each and every month.
Now, Vince, with that much demand, how much does Harvest Manitoba rely on donations in order to support the folks that use the food bank and the over 380 food banks in Manitoba that you distribute to?
It takes a province to feed a province, and without the support of Manitobans, we simply can't do our work. For almost 40 years now, we've been working hand in hand with the community, our donors, our volunteers, retailers, our agricultural producers to get the job done. And the reality is today we're providing more than 1 million pounds of food every month to keep up with that demand. The donations that are made today during Make the Season Kind are absolutely critical to sustaining our work all throughout the year.
How much more of a demand are you going to be seeing, because the holiday season here is just right around the corner?
Yeah, well, you know, when the holiday season comes around, certainly, and the colder weather when it comes around, puts a lot of stress on families, and we see that driving demand to food bank as well. But the reality is that demand is there 12 months out of the year. And the funds that we're able to raise today through this event and the funds that we raise throughout the holiday season make sure that we have those resources and the food available to support struggling families all year round.
So, Vince, what can people do to help Harvest and to help those who are struggling right now with putting food on the table?
Well, the best thing you can do to help Harvest right now, support the Make the Season Kind drive today. Also, of course, you can visit our website, harvestmanitoba.ca, find out all about how you can donate and support Harvest today or any time of year.
Vince, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Vince Barletta is the president and CEO of Harvest Manitoba. Well, today is Make the Season Kind Day here at CBC Manitoba in support of Harvest Manitoba. Winnipeg singer-songwriter Madeline Roger will take us to break. And remember, you can make the season kind by donating to Harvest.
When I first loved you, you said, hold on, I'm not ready. So I went walking through tall grass, hoping we'd lay among wildflowers. Among
All right, let's have a look at your 7-day forecast now. And I'm going to sound like a broken record because we're looking at very stable weather over the next few days. Temperatures around the freezing mark Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Breezy on Wednesday and Thursday. We could see some flurries, maybe some periods of snow on Thursday. Temperatures still just above the freezing mark. And Friday, we're looking at a temperature of +1 as well.
Thank you very much, Riley. Well, again, remember, you can donate to Harvest anytime online, and the phone line is open for another half hour. They will also be taking calls tomorrow morning and Sunday morning between 6 and 9 a.m.
So we also want to say a special thanks to Dave and Elena Forgan, who will be matching donations up to $100,000. And Margie, you have the updated total.
So the updated total, your help has helped us raise $266,431.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah. We'll let Donna Merrill play us out. Have a good weekend.
And I need this heat. Won't be wrapped in ribbons, won't be hidden beneath the tree. Baby, you're all I need. You're all I need. Christmas is coming.